Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, part of the Paramount Podcast Network. I am Mike Casazza, welcoming in Chris Anderson. Chris, we are off of Twitter Spaces. You'll be off the grid for the next few days. Imminent news breaking here. I'm sure while you're gone, it would be no other way. And we can get into some of that stuff. Maybe some white smoke from the chimney at the Pushkar Center about a position of intrigue. Maybe not even intrigue, but certainly a position that's very important to West Virginia's future. We'll get into that today when we dig into the Q&A mailbag here. My first question to you, however, are you ready?
I am ready.
They going to be any good?
It's a good question.
I can rephrase.
Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe I should be asking you that question. I mean, I am seeing some of the film. I'm seeing some of the pictures. I hear things, talk to people. You have seen them more in person than I have this fall camp. So let me flip it back on you. Are they going to be good?
So I'm going to go on relativity here. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I know people who work in the Pittsburgh media. I actually know somebody who works at Pitt. I haven't contacted that person yet, but there's people who work in the Pittsburgh media. Person who works at Tech. Some people who cover Tech, and those are the most prominent early season opponents. And I've sent some emails, some texts, had a phone call even. Very throwback of me. And it's just kind of like shoulder shrug, hands in the air. Two things are alarming about that. One, we might have more access to football in the preseason this year. And I got to say this looking over my shoulder, because you know us. We sometimes step in the on the hot coals on this.
That may have been brought to my attention. A phone
call.
No, yeah, it was.
So we've seen a good amount of football. Other people have not, and they just kind of go, I don't know, what we've seen. They look, I don't know, limber, because they see stretching and they see special teams too, or they see like running in place and all that stuff, up downs and all that. So it's hard to draw conclusions in some situations, and also a lot of the reports you get from the inside out, everybody's awesome. We have seen a lot of football and limber, active on special teams. Everybody seems to be enthusiastic. So, yeah, 10 wins you figure? But I don't know. Like, there's a lot of formative stuff and conclusions I can't draw. But I kind of come away with the fact that, like, there's nothing obvious that says, yeah, they made a leap. But more importantly, maybe I think relative to this conversation is that, like, there isn't anything that says, now they stink. And when I talk to other people from other schools, and this is even some of our Big 12 compadres that we network with, when a team has got something or someone, because they're supposed to be good and it's reinforced, or they're supposed to be bad and it's reinforced. And you got those teams that are like, we'll see. And I think that West Virginia is a we'll see team. And I've written about this in 3 things, and I think that we've all probably hinted or talked about this too. They did have a good offseason and positioned themselves for success. A couple of things have to go right. And the preseason is about, putting them in position to be ready to go and then letting them go and see if it works. But I kind of feel like a lot of that stuff is getting done. And you really can't cut the ribbon, so to speak, until that first game. You don't know until you know. I just kind of feel like they're getting the pieces on the board. And then when it's time to go, they'll see what they can do. And that's maybe the best they can do. So we both said 7-5 was our prediction. We differed on one game, I believe. I have them losing to Pitt. You have them losing to Virginia Tech, I believe.
Yeah, that was what we flipped.
One deviation. So, Pitt, Tech, probably going to be the key to their preseason for sure before Big 12 play. But those teams have questions too. We're not sure how they're answered. You get them in September. That's awesome. And will West Virginia be ready? I think that's the question. Like, can they be good? We'll know if they're ready. If they're ready, then they haven't answered the question. It's probably, kind of an affirmative and emphatic. Yeah, they'll be fine.
And here's my thoughts on that, because I'm with you. When you look at this team and you wonder where are the biggest concerns. Don't worry about the what's great part. If you're trying to figure out what might go wrong, look for the biggest concerns. And maybe this is the new normal in the age of the transfer era, because the big areas of concern, you're thinking, cornerback, all those departures, linebacker, all that, the departures and needed experience there in the middle, and safety and so on. But then West Virginia added all these pieces that could be great, could be good, could be bad. And maybe that's kind of the new normal of this transfer era, where there are a lot more question marks. You're no longer asking yourself, hey, can that redshirt freshman or redshirt sophomore who's played 12 snaps in his career, just not suck? Or is he going to be one of those special players? Now it's, hey, we've seen this guy actually be good somewhere else. Can he be good here too? And that's where you're at with West Virginia on this team, because a lot of those places that I felt like they had holes, that they had concerns, again, cornerback, linebacker, safety, you have pieces now, pieces that have been good, have been great at other places. And you wonder, can they do it again? Can they do it at West Virginia? And if they can, where is West Virginia going to struggle? Where is the issue? If JT Daniels lives up to his 5-star billing and completes passes at a 70% rate like he has when he's been healthy, if the cornerbacks, Wesley McCormick, one of the highest rated corners in the country a couple years back, Rashad Ajayi, who's got multiple years of starting experience, if he's pretty good, if Jasir Cox is really good at spear like he was at North Dakota State, if Marcus Floyd, it's a lot of ifs, but all of these guys have done it before. You're not saying if with an unproven commodity. You are saying if with a semi-proven commodity at a lot of different spots.
I think it's a great point if you work backward and forward here in our logic, which makes sense for us, right? But, could they be good here where there's a question mark? Could they be good here as a question mark? And it's kind of like birdshot, so to speak, where you're throwing a lot out there. They have a bunch of corners, for example, but they only need one to hit. And they have questions at, maybe depth at receiver. They need one to hit because then you got depth. So you look at that and say, okay, if they get some depth at receiver, if they can round out their back end of the secondary, if that's good, that's fine. Where else might they be weak? Well, I don't know. How about the offensive line? How about the defensive line? That is not a question for West Virginia. So where they have question marks, they have ways to turn them into exclamation points. They just got to get a couple things to hit. And I think that's what they're all about right now, trying to figure out who, where, and how, and they still have time to do that. And it's work. It's a list, I'm sure, but like it helps to have an idea where you're going and who you can use to get there. Like they're trying to pick players to start. They're not trying to identify who could start. They already know who could start. They're trying to pick the right one. And to be honest with you, Chris, I think we're on the same page. I don't feel a need to belabor the point. We haven't done the Q&A in a while. Probably should jump right in, huh?
Yeah, we're in mid-season form though, taking 15 minutes before we ever get to the first question. So
almost
we're ready.
Yeah.
You want to get started?
Mm-hmm.
All right. First question. Right. One of the things that we're talking about right now, from Lighton. First question in the thread. First question on the pod. Do we get an announcement on JT being the starter this week, officially or unofficially? Mike, give me a timeline here.
You want to say over under Wednesday?
Right. Well, I might see. So, later. Which one's later? Over Wednesday?
How about before or after Wednesday?
Okay. Because I think, do we need to see that scrimmage that's happening Thursday?
Good point.
Or do the coaches need to see Thursday before they make a decision?
Yeah, I think then you go into the weekend, you can do it. And Thursday is such a big day for them in this offseason because they have Thursday games and they start the season on a Thursday. So they're kind of framing their calendar around Saturday is Thursday because they're going to have to do a Thursday routine a couple times. And they also start on a Thursday. Scrimmage, I think, is Thursday, the second one. That could be formative. It could be final. It might be a smart bet to go over. I'm trying to figure out when we talk to Brown again. You can fill in the blank space here in a second. I'll look it up, but
not this week. I don't think we see him again till the end, right?
I can't remember.
So players Thursday, assistants Monday. Don't get Neil Brown till August 29th, at least according to the schedule.
Before then, for sure. But also, would you be shocked if scrimmage Thursday and there's a Twitter video at noon on Friday where Brown says, he's in his office and he's got his hands like steepled and he's talking about his new starting quarterback named JT Daniels and what went into it, why he picked him, and how great the other three were? I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that either. But I'd be very surprised if it's much longer before he's named. Everything I've seen, which is quite a bit again, and from what I've heard from other people there, it's going to be him. It's just a matter of when.
Hey, how deep into the earsportsplustrust.com account do we have to go to get Neil Brown to announce that on Earsports on Friday?
If the hands are steepled, that means you probably have to have a collection plate going around, right?
Yes.
So it would take quite a bit, I think.
Oh well, but yeah, I agree with you. I think I was about to say Friday afternoon news dump, but I mean that's just not something you want. You're not dumping that. So yeah, I think you're a noon or early morning. Let it churn all day on the Twitterverse and social media. Get on ESPN. Let it go because it's news. It's going to be news. And if you have an opportunity to kind of pump that out on Friday, it's a good time to do it.
And if
And
you're
it
playing
makes
for
sense after that one.
if you're
Sorry.
playing for 3 o'clock Friday, you might get it at noon on Friday or at 9 a.m. on Friday, just for a couple minutes before it's pulled offline and then tabled for some time later in the day too.
There you go.
Hmm.
Um, God, I can't wait till you get another phone call.
I got more up my sleeve here, I think.
Yeah, I think we need to. Next question. Pastor of Muppets, as noted. Great name. Um, Move here into the middle of his question. He had a kind of a 2-3 part question. He asked, curious also how or if there's been a lot of changes to how Brown is managing things since stepping back from his offensive role and moving into a more of a CEO type role.
They're on time quite a bit. I'll just say that, like, less is more here, but like that had been a thorn in some people's paw before. So things are operating smoothly, and I think if he's overseeing things and he's the Geppetto and he's got his hands on all the wires, everything starts and finishes when he wants it to. But if he's trying to get one thing done because he's the offensive coordinator, he's got to keep an eye on quarterbacks, and then he's got to run around and go see like what's going on the defensive line and special teams, things might take longer too, and that could extend to meetings and planning sessions and all that too. But by and large, apart from one day where he was apologetic about it, um, on time. So which means sharp start finishes. That's good for a team that I'm sure has to be places on time. And if you're not early, you're not on time. You know that whole thing. So if if the product on the field that the coach guides is the same as the product off the field that the coach demands, that's probably pretty good. It reinforces behaviors too. Apart from that, the guy's everywhere during practice. Like he's all over the place. And it reminds me of like a guy who just has a bunch of time on his hands. Like he's on vacation, he doesn't know what to do, or he's retired and he takes another job, whose parents have done that. They retire and all of a sudden they're doing part-time jobs somewhere, right? That seems a bit like him where he's not retired, but like he's taken off the offensive coordinator hat, but he's itchy and he's got to take another job part-time somewhere else. And you see him everywhere. And like one day, and I read about this too, he's out there catching punts. He's showing guys how to fair catch. He's kicking the ball back to the punters. He's covering Caden Prather. He's mimicking like what the nickelback is supposed to do on certain routes. He's all over officials. Like he's just involved in stuff right now too. So if you extend that attention where he can really throw out a large blanket and cover up a lot of the practice, he should be catching things and either keeping stuff sharp or stuff that isn't sharp. He can help make it sharp. He can have a coach's back. He can answer a question. He can ask a question. I think is going to make a difference. And it should make a difference because that's why he did it, right? That's why he backed away. And he said this too, like he was spread way too thin and he wasn't a good offensive coordinator because he still had to be the head coach. At the very least, the offense should be better, as weird as this is to say, because Neil Brown isn't running it. And it's not because he was bad at it. It just means that like he doesn't have to be in charge of that and everything else. He got a bona fide offensive coordinator to come in and do it. And he can come in and he can sit in the meetings and throw in his 2 cents or his $2. But he's also got to go to this meeting and that meeting and this game planning and this film review and all that stuff too, because that's what he can do now. He has time. He has the luxury to do that. And everything else should grow and benefit as a result.
Let me hop in here and ask you another question, a follow-up on this. How similar or not is this to the situation with Dana Holgorsen?
Identical.
It is identical? Okay.
I don't know what identical is, because even identical twins will look a little bit different. At the very least, they had different names, right?
Yeah.
But the motivation's identical. Like, let's be frank. Might have gotten fired, right?
Yeah.
And just things were not working like as well as he thought, believed, knew they should work. Who am I talking about? Who's he, right?
Right.
It could be Holgorsen, it could be Brown, it could be anybody who's done this, and you just don't see a lot of like play callers now who are head coaches up to the NFL, like, and the ones that do it are extremely burdened. It's just such an all-encompassing job, and let's be honest, the quality of life for coaching now is really, really taxing. And Brown, by all indications, is someone who would probably not want to be ostracized from his family, right? As a lot of people are. Good men want to be good dads, good husbands, and things like that. And the job pulls you away. It's tough. And like that's another metric here too. There's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do throughout different times of the calendar. Like when your family understands, like when it's football season, all right, dad's gonna be gone from this time to this time, from this month to this month. Cool. But like when that becomes something that seeps through other activities like softball games or basketball games, it can become really difficult to bear. Like perceptionally to me, like Brown was conflicted the other day because he was at a press conference and maybe he didn't want to be, or maybe he knew he had to be, but he was checking his phone trying to get updates about a softball tournament in town, right? That his daughter was playing and he couldn't be at. Like he can do more of that stuff. He can never do as much as he wants. I get that, but like I think he's able to be more of the husband, dad, like softball fan, basketball fan, whatever, like for his kids too. And that's another part of the metric too, because you grind yourself so hard for so long if you're doing just the coaching stuff, and if you don't mix in the things that'll get you away, you're going to be out of this business one way or another before long. And maybe he spotted that too and said that's not the way I want to go out. And just step aside and do it. And Holgerson's motivation was different. Didn't have a family like that, but he also knew that like the overall operation was better if he was running it, and the offense was better if someone that he could bring in would run it, which was Jake Spavital. So he trusted him and knew him. Not quite the same as Brown hiring Harrell. Harrell and Brown didn't really know each other, but the idea is the same. Like, who do I trust that can just take care of this thing that I've tried to take care of for so long, but I've really realized now I can't do it anymore. Motivation is the exact same.
Yeah, I think that's something maybe everybody needs to remember about everybody's job. Like you think of Neil Brown, I think, for the general public or at least West Virginia fans, to think, yeah, your whole life, your whole identity is supposed to be make my team better. And they got a lot going on. There was one recruiting camp where Neil Brown was there and then was leaving early, and it was relayed to me by someone else that, hey, don't don't say something about him not being here. He's trying to go catch his son's baseball game for the first time in like all summer because he keeps having to be at these camps. And then there was another camp this year where he showed up a few minutes late and was in a full suit and tie and kind of cracked it. Hey, where you been? And he was like, a funeral. And I was like, oh, crap. So, I think a lot of people need to remember there's a lot more that goes on in this job. And if you try to do everything at this job, you're going to have issues with the everything else too. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a good thing that he did this, and you can definitely tell a difference.
One more point, if I can. This is not related, but Harrell said something about how he goes about identifying the quarterback for his offense. And he said, ultimately, the quarterback's job is to make everyone around him better. Think about that for a second. One, that's completely true. But isn't the head coach the quarterback of the program?
Mm-hmm.
And if his job is to make everyone around him better, how does he do that? Well, he's got to like delegate. He's got to distribute. He's got to get the ball to different people. He's got to incorporate all parts of the offense, the program. He's got to make sure everybody's running and knows what to do. And you can do that much better if you're removed from one thing and you are involved with everything too. So his job is to make everyone around him better because he's the quarterback of the program. It's a different explanation, but the logic's the same.
Next question coming from RVA Ear. What personnel packages do you think will see the most in the new schemes, assuming a lot of 11 and on 12, but wondering about 13 and even 00? Do you mean 10, or is EK and 00 for real?
Empty?
Oh, full empty.
Uh-huh. Maybe. All right. Listen, everybody, just close your office doors. Okay. Put in the earbuds. All right. I'll give you a second, okay? Because we're not supposed to talk about this. All right, you ready? They got into 10 personnel in so many different ways on Saturday, and people who are there can back this up. But 10 personnel, 1 running back, no tight ends.
Now, Mike, are you? Maybe we should ask some of the couple thousand fans that were there if they are allowed to say this.
How about a couple hundred fans that were there?
We'll see if they want to report it, because I don't think you can.
But I've also seen this in all the practices I've been there. So listen, if I'm going to compliment them for allowing us that many practices, I'm also going to draw upon that. So what I saw Saturday reinforced what I'd seen before too. They got into 10 personnel, which is no tight end, with a tight end in the field. They got into 10 personnel at different times now in this preseason with 2 tight ends in the field. Okay. That's 12 personnel, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they have a whole bunch of different ways to skin the cat. They've talked about how they had 20 personnel, right? You can get from 20 to 10 pretty easy. Like just by like you can get from 4 wide out of a 20 personnel, which they've done. And I've seen this in practice that I've been allowed to report on too. So I'm not breaking any covenants here, but like I was just kind of I was impressed Saturday by what I thought might have been experimental or just a way to get people involved in other practices where they were able to use a whole bunch of different formations. Now, I think they're going to play a lot of 10 personnel because I think they like their top 3 receivers. I think they could find a place for 4, which would be Reese Smith or Preston Fox. But I also think you could see them play quickly and keep a tight end in the field. And you can go from 11 personnel to 10 personnel without subbing. You can keep a tight end in the field. And if that's Mike O'Loughlin, if that's Brian Palendi, you can just kind of quickly go without having to sub, and you can keep the defense in a bad spot. So maybe one down, Palendi's kind of lined up on the line or in the backfield. Maybe the next he's a slot receiver. And maybe there's 2 receivers in each side on one snap, but maybe on the next, Palendi, Sam James, and Bryce Ford Wheaton are on the left, and it's a screen pass to Sam James, and he's got 2 blockers over there. 12-yard gain. Okay, cool. Now 4 wide, 2 on each side, draw up the middle where Palendi's blocking. Like there's just so many ways to do stuff too. I see them being like, I think they're going to have a tight end in the field quite a bit because I think they like their 3 receivers and their tight end. But I would not be surprised if those 3 receivers, tight end, and running back look very, very different. I mean, they could go empty. They could go 4 wide. They can go 1 attached. Like there's just a lot they can do just based on what I've seen so far. I don't know what their most popular formation will be. I think their most commonly used personnel combination will be 3 receivers, tight end, running back.
Interesting. I was trying to look at the snap counts on PFF under Graham Harrell at USC. And you go through, and again, this isn't perfect because you just look at the snap counts. They don't actually have lists, as far as I know, list the personnel or how often they got in certain personnel groupings on offense. But you do see, yeah, I mean, it looks like a lot of 2 tight end, or maybe not 2 tight end sets, but
oh my God, the sniper almost got me there. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
I shouldn't have said that out loud.
At least like a lot. There's 4 or 5 different tight ends with over 100 snaps. I think you're getting to almost 5 tight ends before you get to 5 receivers, based off what I'm looking at PFF. So I think, but again, I'm certain he will adapt based on what he has, who's doing well, matchups, all that stuff. So I'm, you know better than I do because you've seen it. But I think he'll be malleable about what kind of personnel he wants to use.
What would you base out of based on the numbers that you know and what you've learned so far from camp?
I love this idea of a 20 personnel in part because 1, I think you got a couple good backs back there. 2, because I mean, I think you can go 4 receivers, so 10 or 20, but you can go with the 20. What you just said earlier, I can't remember what you said, but it was like a 20, and you can very quickly get into a 4 wide set out of that 20. Do you have the running backs to do that? Maybe with Johnson, Anderson. I think they're pretty versatile. But what about C.J. Donaldson as that second back in the backfield? You got that 20 look with a split back set, and you got Tony Mathis on one side, C.J. Johnson on the other. All of a sudden, you get the signal to go into motion. C.J. Donaldson goes into motion, and now he's in the slot as your 4th receiver with a single back set. And you can kind of flip in and out of that. And you got that's part of the reason I think maybe that Donaldson is a big piece of this, just because he could be that running back, he could be that tight end, he could be that inside receiver, he could be I don't want to say fullback, I don't know about like a lead fullback, but gives you a lot of flexibility there.
I think that's the thinking behind putting him there, which makes me think that like they're going to find so many ways to use one personnel package in a bunch of different formations, which makes you think, will they play fast? Will they go no huddle? If they got a quarterback who can do that, who can coordinate between the snap, right? Whistle to snap is a pretty important time for subbing and lining guys up. But if they got a quarterback who can do that, and one quarterback would seem to be out front ahead of the others there because of that. Man, who knows what type of magic they could work if they're playing quick. I'm not saying no huddle, but quick. Maybe no huddle, and just kind of using one personnel grip in a bunch of different formations. That's a fun idea to think about.
Well, here's not a fun idea to think about. This question from Snufficator. Ignoring record for a moment, what's the most disastrous outcome / damaging narrative that could happen for WVU this season?
All right, I got a runner up.
Okay.
For my answer, I'll give you the runner up, and you can do the answer. How's that?
Okay.
My runner up is if.
What if I don't have an answer?
Oh, okay. You want me to do both?
No, well, let's see. You go ahead with your runner up. I might have an answer.
My runner up is just kind of a continuation. Like if these transfers in the secondary are not good, they're cooked on defense. They just are. Like, because they won't have depth, they won't have players, and they won't be able to play man to man. They won't be able to stop teams. And like a lot of their success on defense is going to rely on the defensive backs, and that means one corner, 3 safeties probably. Charles Woods, preseason all conference, sure, we'll see, but I think the ceiling is attainable for him. I don't think there's any question he can be a good player. So they have talked so much about the science behind getting FCS people to the group of 5, or even to Power 5, or even group of 5 to Power 5. So, hey, we're going to get these FCS guys. They're hungry, they're experienced, they'll be fine. We'll see. Like, it's a great idea if it works, but like, again, remember the international recruiting pipeline? Really good talent that not a lot of people have seen, but talent's talent hasn't quite worked out. So if they have all these transfers that are supposed to be good and they don't pan out, that really kind of like pops a balloon on an idea that I think that they want to kind of inflate their defense with. That would be bad for me because, let's be frank, they don't have a great batting average on transfers. They've had some hits, right? But they've popped up a couple times, and they struck out a couple times, and they fouled out a couple times, and they have a lot of transfers coming in, and a couple have to hit. Not all of them, but a couple have to hit. But if it's just a 3 down the middle, and they look at each one and it's not good, that would be pretty discouraging to me, I think.
And I don't know if this is your answer. It might be. It's my answer. It's that JT Daniels stays healthy, the defense is good, and the offense is still average to bad. And then West Virginia ends up 4-8, 5-7 again. And then because the narrative that comes from that is, okay, you've changed your quarterback. You had all your offensive line coming back. You had some experience coming back at receiver. You got a brand new offensive coordinator, and you still don't have an offense, because that kind of stigma can linger, just as the good stuff can stick around. I mean, heck, we're 10 years at least removed from the Geno Smith, Tavon Austin days, and I will still talk to recruits who tell me, man, I love that offense. I just remember Geno and Tavon. Like, kid, that was 10 years ago, 5 offensive coordinators and a couple head coaches ago. But it sticks because it was so special. It was so good that it sticks. And it was good for a while. Pat White, Steve Sladen. West Virginia was known for their offense for years there, for the better part of a decade. I mean, even longer if you go deep into the Big 12 and come all the way up to Will Grier. West Virginia was known for their offense, and that kind of even sticks around now, even with West Virginia's struggles on offense the last 3 years. But if West Virginia has a 4th year of mediocre to bad offense, even after returning all the offensive line, getting a new 5-star quarterback, getting a new offensive coordinator, and it's still not good, that's a problem, because then that might stick around. That stigma might take over, and that might stick around for the foreseeable future with recruits and everything.
Chris.
Yes.
This is our 364th episode of Country Roads Confidential.
I finally said something right.
I think we figured each other out, because that is the right answer, and it's the one I picked out to be the right answer. I can't say any better. Next question, please.
Okay. I'm going to move on to a little something here that I was not aware of. You were, apparently, from Dome Defense. You ready to get to these last 2 questions, or was there another one that I missed somewhere?
No, you're good.
Okay. Dome Defense. I was listening to the first episode of Gun Podcast with Owen and Jed, and they mentioned Jed not only gets to watch practice every day, but he gets a copy of the film for practice too. If someone told you that you could get access to both of those things, but you had to give up 1,000 presumably dollars out of pocket, would you accept?
Well, is it prorated? Because I don't want to go to practice every day. I'd much rather watch the film. So what's the film like? 700? You think?
Yeah. The convenience, there's a convenience fee in there, so it's more than 50% for sure.
It might be 1,200. They might pay me 200 to go to practice. I don't know. Yeah. So, boy, that'd be awful nice. Just to know the secrets and all that stuff too. Like, you ever had that conversation with your friends about like what superpower would you like to have? Like, I never even blink. I'm like, getting invisible. Just because I would do things like go to practice,
Yeah.
and then I would come back to my house not invisible and write about it. Like, oh, here's things that happen. Here's what I've learned about the situation. Not sources say, but what I learned because I was there. I just happened to be invisible. So if I didn't have to be invisible, which by the way isn't happening, but if I could somehow get in the arena, that'd be pretty cool. $1,000. I don't know. We'll have to talk off air about my contract, Chris. I'm in a contract here. Did you know that?
I did not. I did know that. Yeah.
I got to see if the old vet's got some pep in the fastball this year too. We'll see before they commit to him. But that's the one thing that I would really like to know about. I don't care about. I mean, it'd be cool, but like if you ask me to like power rank things, being in meetings, film sessions, planning, and all that stuff, I don't know. Like the Thursday practice would be the most important one to me because that's where all the important stuff happens. That's about depth charts and all that. But like practice footage would be so cool, and not only that, but like it's all 22. Like what Jed gets to see is really nice. Like it's the all 22. It's HD. It's perfectly framed. I mean, you can tell like if the receiver's eyes are open or closed on something, even though they're far away. It's great stuff. I would love to have it. How much would I pay for it? Could I expense it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all the money would make it.
Well, here's the caveat. Jed gets to see that, gets to watch that, and he uses it differently than we do, like, or differently than how we would if we were able to have access to it. Because Jed uses it, I mean, we would obviously use it to increase our knowledge of the team and what we're saying, obviously, but like that would then turn into content for you and I. You and I would then write, so hey, like you said, here's the scoop that happened at practice today. Here's, who was working with the first team, who was working with the second team. And that's just not how that works with them. I think, obviously I think there are caveats that come with, sure, you can look at this, but you can't mention it to anybody, or you can kind of use it, but only on the radio, like as the game's being played. So now it's too late for somebody else to pick up on something that you're saying and use it in the game plan or whatever. But if you told me, hey, Chris, somebody will sneak you the film for $1,000 and you get to do whatever you want with it for your site. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, don't call me because that's bad and I would never do that. But I have Cash App. That's all I'm saying.
Also, so. I'm fairly recognizable. Like you could see me on the sideline. I will be Chris's intermediary. Right? Because here's again, Chris, 364 of these. I was going to say the same thing. Like, listen, if you happen to be in the film office at WVU and you're tired of eating ramen and the GA salary ain't good enough, we can go from ramen to like, I don't know what's better than ramen. Anything, I guess, right?
Yeah.
We could find a way to make the Kroger shopping a little bit more palatable for you. How about that? But no, you already took that one from me.
Don't get me started on this Kroger. By the way, you mentioned Kroger, and all of a sudden somebody sent me something or tried to post it on our Facebook page the other day. And you'll know this more than me. The different Krogers of Morgantown, the Gucci Kroger. Mm-hmm. You're a Gucci Kroger shopper, aren't you?
No, I hate getting down the hill. I hate the parking lot. I love the food store, but if you forget something, you've got to run like a 5K to get back to get some eggs because you're on the other side of the store.
Okay. All right, I was just checking because I didn't know there were names and special names for all the different Krogers. I had to think about it a little bit. I've been in all of them, but
Krogetto is a good one.
Yes.
Hard name.
Last question from JCart304. Totally hypothetical.
Totally.
But if someone was to post a list of the entire athletic department's personal numbers, would you use it if there was someone you needed to contact?
I mean, I will. Like, yeah, not would I will for sure, because there are many numbers on that recently linked document that I did not have. that I've been frustrated about not having. I could really go off about this. Like for example, I asked one person when I met this person, as professional courtesy, could we trade cell phone numbers? Because if something happens, like one thing I tell any coach or administrator I ever meet, I'm not going to surprise you. Like if something happens, I'm going to let you know. So at least you have a heads up, and maybe there's an opportunity for you to comment on it, inform me, whatever. But like I'm not going to surprise you. So hey, give me your cell phone, because sometimes things happen after the university closes and I can't go through the proper channels. And this person said, well, I just got a cell phone from the university, and I have one from where I was before, and I actually have 3 cell phone numbers. I'm like, well, I don't want your cell phone. I just want the number so I can call you. Like I don't need to actually have your physical cell phone. I just want the number. And I never got that person's number. Guess what, Chris?
You do now.
Got it. Got it. And like there's some people there who every now and then, like you just never know. Like there's 17 sports on campus. I can remember one time I had to write a story about a rowing team backing out of an international competition, and I had to get in touch with the rowing coach, and she was not happy that I knew the story and I got in touch with her, but I had to do it. I've had experiences before where like I've gotten in touch with somebody who's like, well, you never ever cover us. Why? Well, it's my job. But also getting caught out of the blue on their personal cell phone number is kind of a weird thing. And listen, I don't have relationships with, never mind, phone numbers for some of the coaches on campus. Guess what, Chris?
You do now.
I got him. So I'm going to fire off. You know what? Now that I have this one person's, the offending party's number, I'll shoot that person a text, be like, thanks for releasing the Kraken, sir.
Oh my God.
How many of those numbers do you think have been changed already?
I was wondering about that because for those who don't know, obviously the vast majority of those people that work in the athletic department are, I think most of those numbers, I think there were different columns with personal and work cells, and all those work cells can be changed, not easily, but they're all school account cell phones numbers that just swap around to different coaches. I'll say this, there was a number that I once had for one assistant coach that I then met a new assistant coach, and it was the same number because it had just been passed around and around. So I'm interested to see what happens if all of a sudden I'm going to get a text from any capital P people telling me, new number, who dis? Or I'll just start texting them all those numbers and just say, hey, new number, add me, and see who adds me back, who responds. How many do you think? I can't remember. Is there like 100 some people on that list? How many do you think?
100 people I forgot who actually had jobs.
100 and not that I know because I don't have it, never seen it, don't even know what this hypothetical list is, but it might have had 191 names on it. How many do you think respond if I just randomly text all 191? 20? A few people just saying F you, Chris.
Yeah, that's higher than 20.
Yes.
Listen, mistakes happen and we can laugh about it. God knows I once blew up a quarterback accidentally in a direct message that I tried to edit and accidentally set across the public. Oh, you remember that one, huh? That's before we
No, I was gonna say I know. I mean, I've done something similar where I've accidentally, because how our headline manager works, our queue that we put stories in, and I have put stories in and meant to, with news or quotes or something from kids or recruits, and meant to hit save and accidentally hit the publish button. They are literally right next to each other. Or if you hit save with a past date on it, sometimes it'll still publish. Or if you hit save on a story and say, for instance, have a committed graphic saved to it, the system automatically takes that committed graphic and places it on the player's profile. And I've saved it, although not published it, and then had people being like, hey, that kid's committed graphic, who has not yet announced, is on his profile. So yes, I am fully aware mistakes can be made, especially on the internet. So I have been there, done that. Sorry, go ahead with your quarterback story because it's probably better than that.
I guess a little story time here. Skylar Howard never held this against me. He might not even know. And I actually saw him not long after he left, and I was never sure if he liked me or anybody for that matter. He had a kind of a love hate with a lot of people when he was here. I never had a problem.
I'm blocked. So
I think it was my Pear Bowl coverage. It got me over the top. Pearl Bowl, I'm sorry. Got me back in his good graces. But like I saw him at a pregame once, and like I didn't say anything to him because I was like, well, that guy hates me, because I just thought he kind of hated the media.
Yeah.
But like he was like, so you're not gonna talk to me? And I was like, my man, let's talk, right? So it's cool. But like when he hit in between his first and second year, somebody like a national reporter, which has kind of hit me up for details about West Virginia's preseason and maybe their spring actually, and like how things were going, whatever. And like, hey, Trickett's back, but like, are they going to have to play a junior college player? And I responded in the direct message. I said, they're going to have to get Trickett, healthy and improve, but like, the JUCO situation stinks because, you don't want to have a guy coming in from junior college and play. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. So I tried to clear it up, and I was like getting off a plane. I turned my phone on, and like this person had DM me. I was like, oh, cool. I must get back to this person, because I thought that was like the most important thing in the world at that particular moment, instead of like, deplaning or not forgetting my carry-on or whatever. So I'm like hastily thumbing through a DM, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on, let me reword that. And I said, they need Trickett to get better, physically, this and that, but the JUCO stinks, period. And that's what I sent. And I don't know how I sent it. I just put it in my pocket because like some woman behind me with a baby was yelling because I was in the middle of the aisle not getting off the plane or something. I forget exactly how it happened, but I put out a tweet that said like, they need Trickett to get better and the junior college quarterback stinks, or something like that, where I meant to say like the JUCO situation stinks. I said the JUCO stinks. Like I was like, oh no. And this is before drafts and things like that on Twitter. I'm not even sure if that would have bailed me out, but like it was out there for like 20 seconds, 90 seconds. I don't know. I'm sure it still exists. I'm sure someone has a screenshot of it somewhere about it. Like, and for a long time I just because if anybody ever came to me and said like, remember that time that you slandered Skylar Howard? I'd have the well actually, because what actually happened was I got off the plane and like, hey, thank you, come again. Thank you, come again. But like my phone was like ding, 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 ding. And I just thought it was me getting messages and notifications from when I had my phone off on the flight. No, it was not. It was people saying, you might want to delete that, right? Mike, what'd you do? Why do you hate Skylar Howard? I didn't check any of that stuff. So what I did was I went back into the DM and I sent the person the text message and I said, they're going to need, Trickett to improve. His health is one thing. His second year he should be better. The junior college situation stinks. You don't want to rely on a guy this year, but they may have to do it. And I sent it to that person. And so like I have that DM saved just so if anybody ever says, again, remember when you slandered Skylar Howard? I'd be like, well, that was actually an accident because here's the actual DM. But like, man, the zero faith in yourself you have after something like that, like I will not DM over the phone anymore just because I'm scared to death of doing that again. So my advanced apologies to JT Daniels if I say something stupid this year by Twitter.
Well, that was a pretty successful return to the Q&A, Mike. We pissed off half the athletic department. We had multiple questions where we both had the same answer, and we got to make fun of you for making mistakes on the internet. So it was a good day. I like it.
Good day, right? Yeah.
It was good return.
We should do it again soon, but like as we are wont to do, you'll be on vacation.
Yep.
I'll be out of pocket one day, which is probably the day everything will happen. Just clear Wednesday, everybody. Clear your calendars on Wednesday. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
If it does, we'll be here to clean it up. Until then, I'm Mike Kazaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We'll talk to you later.